She said that American soccer fans, most of them aren't smart. They don't know the game. They don't understand.
Gio.
That guy gazpacho.
Forbes can take a lame gorilla, okay?
Right, did you know that Arsenal died?
He's got me buzzing.
Up the top, it's hard to up him anyway.
I'm just not even gonna comment on that.
Welcome back to Footy with the boys. We will be recapping what is probably the most embarrassing game for the US men's national team in 10, 20 years now at this point. An embarrassing 5-1 loss. We will get into it from the side of our missing co-host who had his car stolen. Nico from the Colombian side, and of course, from the US's side. And what does this mean for Gregg Berhalter, the players, and for the US moving forward? Brazil next, and Copa America after that.
Tinfoil
Mike, before
hat.
we get into that,
Mike
tinfoil hat, what is...
Mike had Nick's car stolen. That guy.
Yeah, we wanted the Colombian bias gone, so Mike did what he had to do.
I think that's
No bad
exactly
vibes.
right.
Yeah, listen. He had to do what he had to do. Mike, before we get into this, because we will have plenty of takes, I'm sure, on this. I certainly do. Let's run through a bit of some big news of the weekend here. The downfall of Concacaf. We got embarrassed in this one, and like I said, we'll get into it. Canada, though, also got embarrassed versus Netherlands. Mexico got embarrassed against Uruguay, our group stage opponent. Then Mexico loses again to Brazil's B team. And then Canada actually gets a 0-0 draw versus France. So, if you're looking at that, potentially, second games of the windows go slightly better for CONCACAF opposition. So maybe the US is on the up and up here, but not great there. Manchester United, Mike, still undecided on Erik ten Hag and his future. I mean, this just, you have to stick with it now. You're waiting so long and letting every other manager get into negotiations.
Yeah, it's a really weird situation over there. Saw an article that said Thomas Tuchel met with Manchester United. They won't be pursuing him. But that's kind of a weird thing to put out there. Like, hey, we talked to another manager, but we're not going to be hiring him. If you're Erik ten Hag, you got to feel like, what the fuck's going on? I just want a silverware with you, the biggest trophy in my time at the club. Do I have the job? Do I not? Can I prepare for next season? When's that going to be? Is Gareth Southgate going to get the job after the Euros? Heard that one floated around a little bit. That would be a terrible decision, in my opinion. What do you think, Flags?
Yeah, I think that's an awful decision. I think Gareth Southgate, among English fans, is one of the reasons why England has not won a World Cup, won a Euros, won some type of trophy with this crazy generation of talent. I mean, his squad selection, his managerial decisions, I think would just impact Man U in a bad way. And Erik ten Hag, I don't think is necessarily looking at Gareth Southgate thinking, yeah, that guy's better than me. I think that's switching shit for jack shit. And it's just, that's not going to help Manchester United. And you'd hope with new ownership controlling the board, they don't go that way. But maybe
Jack shit
maybe
better than shit. Jack shit might be a little bit better than shit. Another piece of Man U rumor mill. Not even rumor mill. I think it's just a confirmed decision. They're going to look to sell Jadon Sancho this summer for around the $40 million mark. That indicates to me that they're going to keep Ten Hag, because why else would you be so adamant on selling this player? I think he would probably be the most talented winger they have available, unless you want to put Garnacho or a inform Rashford in that discussion. But if you have a new guy coming in, wouldn't you want that kind of talent for him at his disposal? I don't get that one. That's a weird decision to be so firm about.
I'm wondering if that's a financial one, though, that he maybe does not have the relationship with Erik ten Hag, who might stay. You can get some money for him right now because he just had great form with Borussia Dortmund. Dortmund might pay up for that fee just because it is somebody that they can rely on. And I mean, they're not getting that much money from anything else. They're not really performing or getting crazy levels of cost. I'm sure that FA Cup was a massive financial helper, but they're still not Champions League that the usual amount for a team that spends like the crazy amount that Manchester United does. So I think it might be a little financial there. But speaking of managers, Manchester United and some updates, Jose Mourinho to Fenerbahce. I'm not sure if you kept up with the Turkish league. They finished second in the Turkish league. They had like 99 points, only lost one game, drew like a couple, and that was it. But they still lost it to Galatasaray. Mourinho comes in. I mean, amazing manager, but how do you even get better than 97 points?
I don't know. You bring in Mourinho. You bring in the perennial winner, I guess.
One lost season, and
That's
manager's
crazy.
out.
That's crazy. It seems like a weird step for him. I can't say it's beneath him. That's disrespectful to Fenerbahce, and they are a perennial Champions League club. But it is kind of below his pedigree, right? With some of the clubs he's been managing, especially throughout his career. But I did catch some of the press conference, his unveiling. Pretty cool. He was holding up the Fenerbahce jersey, said, "This jersey is my skin," or something along those lines, which if you're hiring a new manager, that's pretty sick. That's something you can ride with.
Yeah, he is a man that could take great power, and with Turkish fans, Fenerbahce. I mean, he did it with Porto. Maybe he can do it here with Fenerbahce, make a run. Well, Mike, no more news around the world. We need to get into the main event, the meat and
Band-Aid
potatoes
off.
of this pod. As much as we may not want to go back through it, relive the experience, the U.S. lost 5-1 to Colombia, and it wasn't really close at any point here. It was early and often. It was the 6th minute. It was a weird ball slanted in. Anthony Robinson, as we'll learn, did not make the greatest play here. Was not having an off game. Bounces it straight back towards the center of the thing. I understand him trying to intercept it. Tim Ream doesn't really cover it that well, and then just gets blasted near post on Matt Turner. Don't think the blame on that one is on Matt Turner. But then they went on to double it. Within 20 minutes there, another goal. Tim Ream initially had given it away. It then goes out for a corner. Comes out, Tim Ream heads it up. They don't get it clear. Two people lose the aerial battle versus one Colombian. And then it just drops to a wide open little bicycle kick in the 6-yard box. Matt Turner, it is a bicycle kick in the 6-yard box. But boy, Mike, that went right next to his hands. I mean, he has to do better there, right?
Yeah, that was horrible, and it wasn't his only blunder on the day. A game to forget for Matt Turner and a lot of the dudes I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yeah, we'll get into the blunders of the whole back five, really, essentially. Then the U.S. out of halftime, sub off Pulisic, on comes Haji Wright, and some action starts happening. Haji Wright was a bit of a dynamo in the first 10 minutes of him being subbed on. Tim Weah maybe thought, oh shit, Haji Wright also plays winger. Christian Pulisic plays winger. Those are two wingers, and they're both playing better than me. Maybe I got to do something. He drops into the center of the midfield, grabs the ball from the opposite side of the field, passes it up, plays a little combination play with Balogun. Balogun plays him in, and he gets a goal back for the U.S. It is 2-1. Colombia in the lead, 58th minute. We'll see what happens. The U.S. absolutely collapse. Absolutely collapsed. It seemed like Colombia kind of turned that switch back on again. We're all over the U.S. The press was absolutely destroying them. Tim Ream, Jedi, Johnny, I mean, really everybody just feel like they could not have any type of composure on the ball. A giveaway by Anthony Robinson led to the third goal. It was a giveaway by Weah that dribbled directly into a defender from our back line for the fourth goal. And or I believe fourth goal, might have been the fifth.
Yeah, that was
but
the fourth.
then, yeah, and then the last goal, Johnny also just did not at all cover a runner in for just a wide open slap into the back of the net. It was mistakes on just about every single one of these goals. And I saw a lot of people saying, individual errors are what costed the US in this one. But if there's that many individual errors, Mike, it's not just a lapse here and there. And against a team like Colombia, you can't make these errors. And it's the pressure that Colombia is designed to do. It is what their coach is instructing them to do, to press, wait for a mistake, and then counter and go. And they did that 5 times. Their press created an issue that then led to a goal. Mike, is there any positives to take out of this from the US side? I'm sure we'll get to the positives for Colombia here.
I guess the only slight positive I can get is the combination play between Weah and Balogun on that goal was good. Good dribble run from Weah, good dish off. Balogun puts in a intricate pass and a good finish, but really that is it. That's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, I think Pulisic was decent. Looked like he was creating. If everybody else was also playing decent, maybe that works out well. But 45 minutes of decent is not going to get it done from just being from one player. For Colombia, Nick wrote into the show. We have a listener here, Nico Valderrama, wrote in. There was a lot of discourse around them not having a 9 good enough to maybe lead them where they want to go in this tournament with all the momentum they have now, 22 games unbeaten. But to Nico, Rafa Borre is a false 9 who helps link everything together, even if he's not that prototypical 9 or that goal scorer. And with James and Luis Diaz and all these players that get forward for Colombia, it obviously shows that they can still attack with the intensity that they can keep here and how they have been playing. Nick does see a final potentially for them. So a lot of positives there on the Colombian side. But Nick or Mike, let's get into the US side where really it's all negatives. And I think you have to start with the players. We'll get into Berhalter because Berhalter is certainly a focus of this one, and I will have a lot to say on that one. But the players themselves, I think Tim Ream had one of the worst games he has had with the US his entire career when he was younger and maybe not cutting it. But every touch he had this game was bouncing up. The balls that he was playing were going straight to defenders. He looked uncomfortable. There were plays that I think we talked about at halftime that in the first half he could have sprung Jedi down the wing. He takes it with his right foot slow and behind him instead of springing him. It's those little things that just kill attacks. He was my worst performer of the game. If Cameron Carter-Vickers didn't also come on as a sub and look horrible, I would think that Tim Ream would be buried into the bench after such a poor performance. But as we're with most of the subs, Mike, Cameron Carter-Vickers came on and immediately stunk it up. Mike, who else do you think potentially a club teammate of Tim Ream also had kind of the worst games or kind of took your eye in the wrong way?
I got to talk about Tim Ream real quick before I say anybody else. I thought I was watching Walker Zimmerman. I thought it was Zimmerman out there. I mean, this is our second most capped player, the oldest player on the team by a long shot. Supposed to be a leader, a composed defender with a lot of experience at a pretty high level. And he had none of it. He couldn't make passes. There was no urgency. There was no leadership. I mean, we talk about that first goal with Robinson stepping in maybe when he doesn't need to. That ball might just go out for a goal kick. And Tim Ream's right there, not talking, doesn't step once the mistake's made. I mean, nothing redeeming about him. His passes were off, his touches were off. And instead of trying to pick up this team once they go down 1-2, I mean, he kept just fading away. He never really looked like, hey, I'm going to pick it up. That's on me. I mean, it was super disappointing. Other players, Anthony Robinson, looked like he had never touched the football in his life. I mean, his touches were off, especially in that first half playing with Pulisic. Pulisic would create something, beat a player or two off the dribble, look to connect, to get the ball back, and Anthony would pass it away on a simple pass. He couldn't do the basics. Every time he got unleashed down the left wing, which wasn't enough, his balls into the box were pretty piss poor. He had one where Pulisic got his head on it, and that was actually a pretty good effort, but I don't think it was a good ball from him. I think it was just Pulisic pulling something out of his hat. Johnny played okay, but I was pretty disappointed with him for a variety of reasons. He never looked to turn, and that might be the system. That might be Berhalter saying, hey, I don't want you to progress the ball. But there were several times where he's receiving it from the back line, no man on back, and he could turn and look to play through the center, and he didn't. He would either play it back to the other center back or just continue to play negatively, whether that was to the outside backs or someone flat in line with them. So no progression from him, which is really disappointing to see. He's a good player. Up forward, Balogun was anonymous. Weah had that piece of brilliance, but he let it get to his head and try to force after that, which was his downfall. McKinney, who is, with my money, I mean, a top 2 player on the team, was nowhere to be found. I mean, for how many minutes he played, 0 impact. Wasn't there.
Not involved.
Didn't make any key passes. Wasn't in great space. Was crowding the right flank, which wasn't really working with Scally and Weah anyway. So everybody was pretty poor. And even Chris Richards was bad. I didn't think anybody in the back line had a good performance, but Joe Scally stood out as having the most composed out of those 4 guys, which is really worrying because he was the guy I was most nervous about going into this camp.
Yep. We'll do one more little segment here, a little game before we get into Berhalter. That game will be called Drop or Not, Mike. I'm going to name off some people that maybe had some tough performances here in this game versus Colombia, that maybe have had some tough performances throughout their U.S. men's national team career. You let me know if it's time to drop them or not. First, we start in goal. Matt Turner, who got dropped by Nottingham Forest, comes in here. We hope he can be the shot stopper, and he looked off in this game. Drop or not for Matt Turner?
Not, just because I don't think there's another good option. Horvath's
Horvath
okay.
out?
He's okay. He's not great. And Sean Johnson's definitely not an option to start. So got to keep Matt Turner in the sticks.
Yeah, the problem is that Matt Turner really is that best option, although we don't really have any other option. So I think you give Horvath potentially a shot, but just because he's been playing, he maybe has some form. But I also think if you do have any shot at getting Matt Turner back to form that he's shown he can do at times, you do have to play him. You have to give him some type of backing. So no drop for Matt Turner there. For Mike, the goal scorer in this game, the lone goal scorer for the U.S., was anonymous for most of the game, except the goal and then giving up a goal in a horrendous fashion. Is it time for Tim Weah to be dropped with the introduction of Haji Wright doing pretty well there for the time that he was on?
Yeah, I'd drop him. Put Pulisic over on the right wing and let Haji go on the left.
Yeah, I do think the interplay between Haji and Balogun, allowing them to combine a bit, was very evident the second Haji Wright came on. He plays rather centrally and moves in. I think that also helps Jedi Robinson have some space out wide. Hopefully Jedi can get some good touches, but I agree that I think Weah, although a goal scorer, was not really what we needed in this one. And then finally, Weston McKennie, who was pretty absent in this one in terms of touches. I believe he was bottom 3 of touches in this game. Is it time to put somebody else in there? And if so, who? Because I don't think Musa had the most convincing performance once he got on.
Not convincing performance, but that's actually who I'd drop McKinney for. I would put Musa in. I think what he shows on the ball is better. He can actually take players off the ball. He's got a little bit of flair to him. And he works harder. Even if he's not having the best game, he's going to have some sort of impact, which I couldn't say about West in this game. I mean, maybe it's harsh. Maybe it's just, the recency bias behind this game, but that was so poor. And he was so anonymous. And he had no voice. I mean, I never saw him get angry or chew someone out or take the game by the scruff of the neck. He didn't do any of it. And at least Musa tried. And I think on his day, Musa's still a pretty good player, a high caliber player at that. So I'd give him a shout, give him a start.
Right. So we've gone into just the score line, what happened, the players' performances, but Mike, perhaps most importantly, the manager, Gregg Berhalter. I mean, there's nothing going for him at this moment. I think that seat is getting awfully hot. I'm not sure how hot because it is still the US Soccer Federation. But this man, since the World Cup, since he got rehired after being fired, has lost to Trinidad, needed extra time to beat a Jamaica team, not just extra time, but a header in the 90th plus 5 minute, the last kick of the game, to get a draw to send it to extra time versus Jamaica in America, and then also gets the largest loss of his managerial career, the only time that the US has allowed 5 goals scored on them since I believe 2016, and then before 2009, and then before that was 1990s. This is unreal that this man is still managing with how little he has on his CV. Mike, I saw this take, and I want your opinion on this. That all these disappointing results, people say, well, is it the players? Are the players just not good enough? You see the players at club performing above this level, week in, week out, and they come to the US and they perform badly. Is it just that they're performing bad for the US? You have to put blame on the players. But what I saw was that somebody proposed at a club, if people are not performing, you can go buy new players. This is a national team. We cannot change the players. The only thing that we can change for these consistently poor performances is the manager. So if it's consistent that we're doing these things, is it not the only move to then change said manager?
Yeah, we have to change the manager and probably change everybody in the federation. I don't know who's in charge of hiring the president of the
Rehiring.
federation if he has to fire himself, but I mean, where's the passion? I mean, what are we trying to achieve? We say, oh, it's all in preparation for the 2026 World Cup, but we don't have any sort of progression. There's nothing measurable. Where are our aspirations? I mean, we're going to sit here and say this is the man for the job. And then he goes on and does these press conferences where he's super calm. Yeah, this is what we did. I'm disappointed. No fire, no blame, no accountability. I mean, he says the same things over and over in every press conference. I mean, if you play them next to each other, they sound like the same thing. He might just have a script written out. It's ridiculous. He's not an inspirational leader. And I think that's the most important thing where the international job is. The tactics come second. You need to have the players, the team believe in you, believe in the style of play, and that they can achieve something. And these players certainly don't look like they have that.
Yep. I think players and the federation, I think it is a joint blame on this one for Berhalter, because players were coming out in support of rehiring Gregg Berhalter. And so you do then have to take some accountability if you are the players that are saying, hey, we want Gregg Berhalter. When the game goes to shit and he's blaming you in the press conference saying the reason why I'm so disappointed is because guys didn't do their job, you do have to somewhat take responsibility that you came out in public and said, yes, I would love Gregg Berhalter to come back. Like, I thought we were doing great. There has been zero progress on this team since the World Cup. Louis van Gaal in the World Cup said that it was an embarrassment of the tactic by Gregg Berhalter. And I think that's exactly what we saw here, Mike, is he is so rigid in exactly what he wants to do. He wants to possess. He wants to do this crossing. You can't do that against these better teams and expect to win. They're just going to press you, and they're going to get the ball, and they're going to score. Is the rigidity in his tactics the biggest issue with Gregg? And obviously throwing some people under the bus here, is that going to maybe create some locker room turmoil?
Rigidity in the tactics for sure, but he's also not consistent with what he wants to achieve. He has the tactics that he wants to play in high volumes of crosses, but he doesn't have the personnel out there to even do that. I mean, he's starting Balogun at the 9, who's not a target forward, who's not good in the air, who doesn't have that profile, and then says we need to get more service into the box. If that's the case, then start a striker who's good in the air, who has some size to him. I mean, have it one way or the other. I think some of these players support Gregg because they know they're going to get playing time. They know that he's going to be easy on them. They know that he's a friendly guy. Fuck that, dude. No, it's not preschool. It's not fucking youth academy, right? We need a manager who's out there to win, and he's going to do it at all costs. He's going to play the guys he knows he can achieve success with. And sometimes you make enemies like that. Sometimes they're not the most likable manager. Who cares? We want results or we don't. I mean, the players liking a guy shouldn't determine whether he's the man for the job or not.
I mean, that's the thing, is his system is based around crossing the ball in. And his halftime interview, he said, we just need to be more patient and find more crosses. The crosses have never worked for our offense. We are one of the worst offenses in all of world football. In every step of his managerial career, his teams have never been great at scoring goals. And the striker you're putting out there is Balogun. He is a connecting play type of striker where you have to play through
connect.
Him, play in. He drops the ball off. He makes a run. His movement is what makes him good for balls through. He is not a striker that excels through the air. So if that's the case,
so is Gio Reyna, and so is
do not
Pulisic, and so is Weston McKennie. These are all interconnecting players. They don't play that direct style of football. And it's clear to me, him saying that, he wasn't watching the game. He wasn't watching what Colombia are doing. They played us like fools. I mean, every time we got it up into the corner, we had a guy dribbling down the line, and they had 3 players compress on him, and they took the ball because he had no options and couldn't even possibly play across if he wanted to. So if that's his idea of what we need to have success, I mean, this guy's just not watching the game. It's simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, if your dangerous system is crossing the ball into like a 5'11" striker in Balogun, I don't even know if he's 5'11", then where's the success going to be? If you have 3 center backs that are 5 inches taller than your striker, who's not even the greatest at heading the ball if he got it to his head, where is any success going to come from? And you have such great players in small tight spaces like a Gio Reyna, like a Christian Pulisic, like a Balogun, like even a McKennie can do, like a Musa can do. They're all connecting and able to move and dribble and make a man miss. This is not what your player pool is suggesting you should play, but once again, he is so rigid in his system that this is the only way he will play. He doesn't change it for the Netherlands. He doesn't change it for Colombia. He doesn't change it for these bigger teams. And that's the same thing that we saw in the Premier League with Vincent Kompany, that if you don't change your system when you're playing against better teams, they are going to take advantage of that. It does not work the same way against CONCACAF opponents as it does to a Conan Bowl or a UEFA opponent. It's just not going to work. And Mike, I think it's the biggest indication of this is that the most convinced I've been of this U.S. men's national team and the most convincing results they've gotten were the 2 results that they got when BJ Callahan was our head coach versus Mexico and Canada in that Nations League semifinal and final, when they absolutely destroyed Mexico, looked absolutely clear in terms of quality, and then beat Canada comfortably as well. Those are the only 2 games I can think of that we've won comfortably that aren't cupcake schedule games. I mean, the sunk cost fallacy that you can't fire Gregg Berhalter this close to Copa America. Do you think a firing should happen right now? See what we can salvage out of this tournament? Or do you think it's a wait till Copa America to save face and do it the nice way?
I'll answer this with, what would any serious federation do, right? What would a team in AFCON do if they were serious about their aspirations in the tournament? What would a team in the Euros do? What would a team in the AFC Championship do? We see these teams fire coaches mid-tournament, let alone right before the tournament.
Do?
Exactly. I mean, there's no passion. There's no demand for change. There's this slow progression. Maybe it'll get better without any sort of results. I mean, yes, the answer is you fire him directly after that result. You don't let him get back on the plane. You make him find his own arrangements, because that was terrible, embarrassing, and he didn't do himself any favors with the press conference after the game. He just looked like a dude who was comfortable with his job.
Yeah, the thing is, you can point at the players not playing well. You can point at individual mistakes and how these players played bad. But when it's all these mistakes and all the players, that points to just one man, and that is the coach. You have to have them disciplined. You have to have them playing well. He has not done that. He hasn't had anything that be a saving grace that, no, you should have hope because of this. If unless you're pointing out like a draw against England in the World Cup, the only win, Mike, that he has against a top 20 team, the only win that is not against Mexico, is Iran in the World Cup. Every other game against a top 20 team, which is about 15 to 16 games, he has either lost or drawn. He has a 7.1% win percentage against top 20 teams. Now, I'm not saying that the US should win all these games, but damn, you could play anybody and be the manager and come out with an upset result more than 7.1% with this American team. I mean, is it on the USSF to make this switch? Is it them that's holding the trigger here?
Yeah, it has to be them who has to make the switch, right? I mean, he's not going to fire himself. He's not going to step down. They need to find someone to do the job. We never look good against anybody who's a decent opponent. I mean, we always looked outclassed. We never even put on good performances. England in the World Cup was a great performance, and I just attribute that to the midfield three because they just work their ass off and they work really well together when those three guys play. But I mean, the Germany friendly not that long ago, we got embarrassed. This one we get embarrassed. I realize they're good teams, but fuck it, man, we're not even competing, let alone trying to get a result. The federation needs to take accountability. They need to realize, hey, where are our aspirations at? Do we want to have success when the World Cup comes to our home soil, or are we okay with this?
Yeah, I think if you're saying the ultimate goal is that World Cup and this needs to be a big stepping stone, you don't want to miss the stepping stone before your home World Cup. There has been no progress with this American team other than the individual talent has just greatly increased. And he's still getting somewhat the same results as when it wasn't that great level of talent we had. This was the first game that
here.
all 11 starters were from the top 5 European leagues. Mike, go off.
I mean, I keep hearing about the talent, right? And it's real. We have significant talent. These players playing in Europe with good club seasons. Pulisic coming off maybe his best club season ever. The players are there, that's sure. But you can't just keep saying how good the talent is. And I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about fans, the federation, media around the team, whatever. How good are we, right? I mean, Gregg said we underestimated this opponent. We didn't respect Colombia. What the fuck are we doing? Colombia's on a 22 or 21 game win streak. They're legit teams. I don't care that some of their players play in South America or Liga MX. What do you mean we don't respect them? How good do we think we are? You think just because we play in Europe and have a few good seasons that now we're top dog? I mean, we're subpar compared to most teams' talent pools who are legit contenders to win the World Cup, to win these international competitions. Have some sense of reality. We're fine. We're fine. We're good compared to some U.S. rosters of the past, but we're not that good. Have the mentality that we need to respect these teams. We need to be an underdog. We need to grit out matches. I mean, just saying we're good it's pointless, and it's not really that true. We're good to our own level, and that's about it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's really missing with this team is there is none of that. The dog mentality, the underdog, the grit, the fight that the U.S. for so long was kind of known for is that they didn't really have the talent.
Exactly.
It was all
Where is
domestic based. You had 1 or 2 European players. Now we have all European players. We have that talent. And it seems like that has gone out the window, that it's no longer underdogs because we have these players at gigantic clubs that outwork all these other ones. And we're getting done the same thing to us that we were doing to other teams is lower talent, but you outperform them due to good tactics and effort. And I mean, the U.S. can't be surprised by this. We have had it happen time and time and time again. And actually, Bruce Arenas did a podcast for Call It What You Want, or I believe it was Kicking It actually with Kate Abdo and Charlie Davies and all of them. But he was on that podcast and he said that after the Trinidad and Tobago game, they went through that and how terrible it was and what it meant for U.S. soccer. a U.S. soccer official walked up to Bruce Arenas after that game and said, "Hey, so sorry about the loss. We got to start planning for those spring games, though. We got to figure out where we want to place them." And he said, "What are you talking about? I'm not going to be here past tonight." And I think that just shows some of that dysfunction in U.S. soccer, that something like that can happen. You fail to make the World Cup by losing to Trinidad and Tobago, and you're still just thinking ahead with the same exact manager. It's not, okay, yeah, this guy's leaving, let's not start planning stuff with him. I think it just shows the mentality of U.S. soccer. And if we want to change the way that America views soccer, as Gregg Berhalter says, I think you have to change the mentality of U.S. soccer.
I agree. 100% agree. And that starts with, we're not that good. We want to be that good, but realize we're not there yet.
Yeah, well, you need to prove it on the international stage. Everybody can have great club careers and play great there. I will say, in maybe a counter argument to that, we do have a lot of talent. Yes, they need to show that a bit more on the international stage, but is that not a part of maybe Gregg Berhalter? I mean, you have a player in Balogun that, yes, he has 6 goal contributions in 10 games, but he looks rather misused throughout the entire time. Gio Reyna is playing an 8, dropping as low as the 6 at times in these games. I mean, is it not just some bit of mismanagement from Gregg Berhalter that doesn't allow these players to look well? I mean, you saw Unai Emery take over Aston Villa, and all of a sudden those players look full up to their potential, as great as they are. Xabi Alonso takes over Bayer Leverkusen, and all of a sudden so many of those players look amazing. Is it down to the manager, where maybe they are just being held back by a non-attacking, non-free-flowing system when they're all attacking, free-flowing attackers?
100%. Yeah, managers just as much to blame as any of the players are, or the mentality is. And it kind of all starts with him at the end of the day, right? Who's he going to play? What is he telling them to do? What's the team sheet? What's the tactics, right? And if he's not setting the team up for success, for sure, it's definitely on him. And we see examples in the international side a lot of low-ranked teams, right? Underdogs coming into tournaments, and they have a really clear identity of how they're going to play, even without very much talent. But they'll get the most out of their talented players, and the rest of the team will function in a way that they could find a result. And we just don't do that. I mean, if the Saudi Arabias of the world could beat Argentina because of their manager, what should we be able to accomplish with this talent?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we should be able to. I mean, I'm not saying we should win versus Colombia, but we should not lose 5-1
Not
in
get
the
embarrassed.
embarrassment that it was. It wasn't even close, really. Mike, next up is Brazil. Looking forward, Brazil is supposed to be the bounce back to, as Gregg Berhalter said, this quote-unquote wake-up call, as if the Jamaica game 2 games ago was not supposed to be a wake-up call. What would you change for Brazil, and what do you want to see out of that one to have any bit of confidence, or maybe just non-depression going into Copa America?
I'd probably change the entire team except for like 4 players. I think
So what are we talking here?
Chris Richards can start. Matt Turner can start. Anthony Robinson has to start because you have no other option. And Pulisic starts. And like everyone else is disposable. You could change them out. Try something new. At least get some hunger out there. And let the guys know who performed against Colombia that that's not okay. I think the clearest answer is Tyler Adams needs to be on the field. I don't know if he's ready. If it's still a rush to put him out there to play, then don't do it, because I would hate to see him get injured before the tournament. But that's the clearest leader on the team, and maybe the only leader on the team. I didn't see it out of anybody on the field last night. That dude would not fucking accept that performance. Tyler Adams is the ultimate competitor, the ultimate workhorse in the midfield. And you know he would have put in a tackle. You know he would have chewed someone out on the team, because it's embarrassing, and that's not how we play soccer.
No. And Mike, I think you just kind of sparked that as we close here. Do you think that is a mentality issue for the U.S.? That these players come in, they have such solid roles in Gregg Berhalter's system. We see similar to the same starting 11 just about every single camp, besides maybe the midfield that rotates around through injury. Is that a mentality issue that these people think they have their spot? It's not the competition that it is in the club atmosphere, in other national teams. Is it too locked in place?
100%. Yeah, that just is the point. That's the whole point that I've been trying to harp is these players are comfortable. They're told that they're too good, and it's not the reality. It's not the facts. They are good players, and some of them are great players, but they are not a great team, and they do not perform as a great team. And the manager could take some of that blame, but you can't go out there with that mindset that I'm on top of the world and then play like that. You have to come out with grit, and you have to prove it on this level.
Yep. And that's something that I'm sure they will certainly learn, if not from that 5-1 drubbing by Colombia against Brazil, who will be sending their A team. They have said they're going to start their ideal 11 versus the US in this one. So it may get worse, cover your eyes, but we will have the preview for Brazil and the review as well after it. Mike, any final thoughts as we close this one up?
Man, I hope I'm overreacting. I hope it was just really that bad, and it was a one-time thing. But it seems like a deeper rooted issue.
Seems like we have said I hope it's a one-time thing about 10 times already, though.
Right. This is the paradox of being a USMNT fan. You get your hopes up so high, you see that talent, you see the European performances, and then you see the culmination of all those players, and it really, really stinks. It's a slap of shit. Man, I hope we're ready for Brazil. They're going to be good. We know that. Let's not take it as casually as we did against Colombia.
If they do take it casually, I would imagine just about everybody other than USSF will be calling for Berhalter's head, because 5-1, embarrassing enough. Another embarrassing loss here. I think that would be curtains on any type of confidence you would have in Gregg Berhalter as a leader if you have not lost it already. Until next time, peace.